and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wonderful. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Great to see everyone. Well, this meeting is being live streamed by Chelmsford Telemedia, and it's posted to the CPS website for interested community members to access and watch. In-person public participation will be taking place tonight in accordance, no, we don't have anyone signed up tonight, correct?
Correct.
Okay. With the Chelmsford School Committee public participation policy, and anyone who does come and speak to us in the future during the public input portion of this meeting would have notified the superintendent's office of their desire to speak and has been provided with these guidelines. And upon request, written comments received no later than 12 p.m. on the day of this meeting today will also be read and made part of the record of the meeting during the second public comment section. Has anybody received any input that we need to read?
No.
Wonderful. Okay. Consent agenda, we have our first order of business is approving the minutes from our meeting of April 28, 2026. Has everybody had a chance to read them? Any corrections? Okay, I'll entertain a motion, please. Susan?
I move that we accept the meeting minutes from the April 28th, 2026 school committee meeting.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful. We have a second set of minutes, and that is from the May 5th, 2026 meeting. Everybody had a chance? Any corrections? All right, and I believe John
I wasn't there.
is going to abstain, okay? So I'll entertain a motion.
So I move that we accept the minutes from the May 5th, 2026 school committee meeting.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful.
Abstain.
And our CHS representatives are still with us?
Yep,
Wonderful. You know, it's wonderful to see you.
right.
How's it going? Any good news?
it's going very good. We have a lot of good news. So Senior Week is happening this week. Yesterday was Hawaiian Day. Today was School Spirit Day. Tomorrow is Throwback Day, with the year being 2016, which makes me feel old. That when I was, it's a throwback, and I was alive. Thursday is College Day or Future Plans Day, you know, and Friday is Jersey and Sundresses Day, paired with the Senior Barbecue. The class of 2028 pickleball tournament's coming up on May 29th at 2:45 p.m. So if you want to go, if you like pickleball and you like prizes, if you think you're good, you should go. The Line 24-hour relay is coming up from May 30th to the 31st. And Junior Job Shadow was today.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, a lot of going on.
Yeah, and some events. The CHS dance team hosted one of their fantastic spring showcases last Friday on May 15th. And prom is coming up quickly for seniors on June 3rd, and following that is graduation on June 6th. And then our junior cotillion was a huge success, with everyone having a wonderful time, celebrating the night with lots of music and my favorite, the food. And then a big congratulations to both the boys volleyball and the girls lacrosse team for having winning the MVCs. And another congratulations to senior Gable Gray for being featured in the Lowell Sun for ranking among the top javelin throws in the entire nation.
Saw that.
In the entire country?
Yep.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, and Richie, the food was the favorite part of
Oh, yeah.
the cotillion,
That's always my
for sure. Okay. Was it raining that day? Was that?
It was a rainy night.
Yeah.
We got in there, it was getting poured on.
But it was still good.
Yep. Had a good day.
Dr. Hirsch, any other good news? Anyone?
Yes, we have I'm going to be very Parker specific. So the Parker Middle School had their Parker Pride Run this past Sunday. It was very well attended. Kids always have a blast doing that. And then the Parker Middle School will be singing at the Woo Sox game for the national anthem on Thursday this week.
Oh, that's
Singing and playing instruments.
And playing instruments.
Oh, is that the 6th grade?
the whole
Sixth grade
thing.
mom in me would not bypass the band's contribution.
Wow, we are
Is it fifth
out
and
there.
sixth grade together or just sixth?
I think it's just select, it was audition-based, sixth graders from all three music ensembles.
Anybody else for good news? Wonderful. Okay, so our next order of business is that we have spotlights on the departments, and we have a whole team of wonderful people here tonight. Oh my gosh, how could I skip
guys can come
Dennis?
up if you
I am really sorry.
Why don't you come up?
You could skip me any.
No, I don't want to. It's
come on
really
up if they're
important.
gonna do the
So we've
Parker
got the
update
Parker
first.
Middle School update, that is correct.
So last Wednesday, our project manager, architect, along with Superintendent Lang, our manager Karen met with the MSBA Facilities Assessment Subcommittee, present our project. I wasn't able to go, it was during school day, so I'm gonna turn it over to Dr. Lang to talk a little bit about that meeting and how it went.
Yeah, I'll be brief. So this is another kind of milestone event for us. After we had the full ed program you had approved at the April meeting, that in combination with the latest preferred location being Parker and the preferred grade 4 to 6 configuration went before kind of a subcommittee of the MSBA board. And we had about a 20-minute presentation we did on the project. There was a 20-minute Q&A on their part. I have to say, it was an excellent meeting. It honestly probably couldn't have gone better. Linda and Joanna and Amy joined us on the call in case they had any questions. They had no significant questions for our submission, which was great. They had a couple of just recommendations as we move into schematic design, just to keep in the forefront of our discussions and deliberations. But it was a great meeting. So that group now recommends us to the full MSBA board meeting, and we're going to be doing that the last week in June. So once we have the full MSBA board approval to go into schematic design and formal cost estimating, that will take us from then through October. And then we go back to the board in October with our actual project to get approved in their eyes. And then we spend October to January educating and informing the community about the project and why we would like their support. So this past week was, again, a big milestone. They're recommending us to the full board in June, so that should hopefully go as well.
That was a lot.
It was a lot. No,
That
That was a
happened.
big hurdle to come over.
That happened, Dennis. So when is the next meeting?
The end of June. Oh, the next building committee meeting? Or,
Yes.
Thursday, we have a building committee meeting, and then we have a public forum
Yeah.
on the 10th?
Wednesday, the 10th.
Wednesday, the 10th.
Okay, great, and that will be again at the Elks?
Elks, yeah.
And at 6, 7?
6.
At 6 o'clock?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. 6 o'clock is we're doing a school building committee meeting
7
before
o'clock
it.
for public.
So 7 o'clock is for the public.
It's public session. Okay, it's moving right along.
It is.
Yay. So next is the big wigs. Here we go. So we've got the spotlights on the department, and I have been looking forward to this personally. Special education, CHIPS is here. We also have social emotional counseling, all those important things. And we have nursing as well, right? Peggy's coming. All right, so we're gonna start, Amy Reese,
Thank you.
okay? And you get to introduce your team.
Thank you. So Student Services is here, and just as a reminder, Student Services encompasses special education, social emotional learning, and school counseling, as you said, school nursing, and Section 504. So today,
All
Yep,
under your
all under
department.
here. And so today, Amy Matson is with us, our Assistant Director. We have Megan McGurk, our Coordinator at CHIPS Preschool, and Shannon Bischoff, Coordinator of Social Emotional Learning and School Counseling today.
Wonderful.
Hear from a bunch of us today.
It's a lot.
Am I doing it wrong? Linda, am I doing it wrong?
Left or right?
Oh, there we go. Okay.
So we have a bunch of topics that we're going to kind of cover tonight, just to, because it encompasses a lot of areas. So we're going to go over a little bit of our special education data for the district. Megan's going to talk a bit about some highlights at CHIPS at the preschool. We'll talk a bit about our special education programs in the district. And Shannon's going to talk a bit about our social emotional updates for the year. And I have a little bit of information from Peggy I'm going to share on school nursing. And we have some information about our DESE coordinated tiered focus monitoring that took place this winter. And we got that report out in March. And then Amy's going to share a bit about our strategic plan work that we've been doing, encompassing our areas in equity. And then we're going to talk a little bit about our CASE collaboratives doing a program review at our elementary level. So Amy's going to share a little bit of information about that, and then we're going to have some updates about our new CPAC. So it's exciting.
Oh, jeez, did I do that?
It's like I'm running the presentation.
I'm gonna be in charge of your.
It's a good thing we have Linda. So just to kind of highlight, I pulled a little bit of data. This is taken from our October 1 reports that the district submits every October, the big DESI report. So that's what these specific numbers had come from. So just kind of highlighting back the past 5 years, going back to 2021, we've seen an increase in student enrollment across the whole district. And we've seen pretty good significant increase in students eligible for special education services. So, from 2021, we went from about 839 students on IEPs to up to 1,081. So it's gone from just under 17% to up to 21% is our population receiving special education services. I will say that's in line with the state. Back in 2021, it was around 17%, and they've seen an increase in the overall state average as well as up to around, I think I put that on there, 21.1. So we're right in line with the state percentage on that. But we have seen significant increases, which obviously has, led to students needing more services.
Want to try it, or you want me to do it?
Okay, now. Oh, was this next? I skipped the slide.
Nope, we're gonna go.
Oh, all right.
All right, so now I'll talk about CHIPS. So I'm the coordinator at CHIPS. I like to say I have the best job in the Student Services Department because I get to work with the littlest kids and introduce them to the Chelmsford Public Schools. So an overview of our program, right now we have 8 classrooms. 5 of our classrooms are inclusive classrooms, so those are set up with a maximum of 15 students, 8 community students, up to 7 students on IEPs with identified special needs. We have 2 intensive classrooms. Those are substantially separate ABA-based classrooms for students who need more support, primarily students on the autism spectrum. At the young age that they come to us, they don't always have an autism diagnosis yet, but they're kind of exhibiting the characteristics of autism. Sometimes they're on the waiting list for an evaluation, and our school evaluation team identifies them with the IEP team as needing a higher level of support than our inclusive classrooms. And then we have 1 classroom that is an inclusive intensive classroom, so half of the day it's substantially separate ABA-based instruction, and then the other half of the day, it's still got that ABA support. The paraprofessionals are ABA trained. The teacher is ABA trained and has a lot of background in ABA, but we bring the community peers in for half of the day so the students can generalize the skills that they're learning in the small group into a larger classroom. So right now we have just about 200 students enrolled, just about half on IEPs, which is kind of the model of our program. So we do have a higher ratio by design. Most of our students attend 2, 3, or 4 half days a week. For our students on IEPs, that's determined by their IEP team based on level of need, what kind of services, and how many services they're requiring during the day. For our community students, it's by sign up and parent request. We do tend to offer those 4-day slots to older students first, the 2-day slots to younger students. And we usually fill up, and we typically have a waiting list by September. So we're a pretty popular program in town. I might have covered what's on the next slide.
All right, I give up.
You have to put that up.
Okay. I take it away from
I
me.
think I covered most of this. So in all of our classrooms, our communication, our motor, our behavior supports are really embedded into the classrooms. Our speech therapists, our OTs, our PTs spend a lot of time in the classrooms, delivering services in there whenever possible. As I mentioned, our intensive classrooms use an ABA-based methodology, and most of the students in those classrooms, as they transition to kindergarten, transition into our SAIL program. Most of our students in the intensive classrooms, when they first start with us, are in that traditional half-day preschool program, which our program is. Some of them we find need more than a half day based on their level of need and the amount of service they require. So sometimes their IEP team will decide to extend their day a little bit longer. So, and then my favorite, the pictures. So one of the highlights at CHIPS is we have some themed hallways. During the year, they're always a highlight. All of the teachers get together and decorate the hallways. And, oh, they went too fast. No, that's okay. We have Under the Sea and Space Week. Those are the ones the teachers do. And not only are they decorated, but they're like a really great sensory experience and a really great learning experience that all of the classrooms can access and participate in. And then the PTO does one. They've gotten into it now. That one's not up there. Because I didn't have any pictures from them. They do a Winter Wonderland. But these are some events that the PTO helps us with. Touch a Truck is one of them. And Book of the Month, they've helped us start a Book of the Month program where every month we have a book that every classroom focuses on. We do activities that are common. I go in and read the book to all the classrooms. They hear it multiple times. One of our teachers set up a sensory walk for all of the classrooms to do. We have activities in the hallway while kids are transitioning. So those are just a few of our highlights. And our PTO is wonderful. I have to give them a plug. They are small, but they are mighty, and they put on a lot of great enrichments for us. And Sue's our PTO representative, so you know all the great stuff that they do.
This is great. So to shift to our special education programming, much like Megan had said at the preschool, we have students that are qualified for IEPs. The focus on those goals tend to be focusing on skills, so they're really skill focused. And, communication goals, academic, motor, social emotional, social skills, behavioral are some of the examples. And those are provided by a range of professionals, our special education teachers, related service providers, PCBAs, psychologists, counselors, social workers. And our services, they look like we have consultation services where it could just be the professionals are consulting on a specific student. And a lot of times that's helpful when we're ready to generalize some skills. So they'll work across with all the paraprofessionals, the teachers in the room, so they can carry it across the whole day instead of just in one particular service time. We have inclusion, obviously, where we strive to have as much of our services in the inclusion gen ed setting. Even with the new IEP that we've had implemented a few years now, the focus has been really keeping students in the general ed setting. So that's been a focus. But then those students that require it, we have some targeted specialized instruction, small group pullout, or in our specialized programs. So to highlight our specialized programs, we have the SAIL program, which you heard a bit about or a lot about last week, our last school committee meeting from Harrington. And that's our autism specialized program. The bulk of it is, we'll get into talking a little bit more specifically, but more of that pull-out substantially separate services. We have our PAVE program, or at the lower grades called functional academic, where we have students with, students that require that more functional-based curriculum. And then STRIVE is our therapeutic program, social emotional, students that maybe are at grade level, don't have academic needs, but have some emotional or behavioral regulation skills that are need to be targeted. And then we have our language-based program, which is at the middle school level, and that's targeting students with specific learning disabilities, specialized in reading and writing, such as dyslexia. So to look at our SAIL program, it stands for Students Achieving Independent Learning. It runs the gamut of preschool from the intensive, we call them the intensive rooms at CHIPS, all the way up to students that stay with us 18 to 22 or move, we provide programming for. It's substantially separate. It has the principles of ABA and primarily focuses on our students with autism that really kind of need more of that discrete trial one-to-one instruction for a lot of academic or skill building. So we have it at CHIPS, at Byam and Harrington at the elementary level, those two elementary schools, at Parker for grades 5 and 6, and then at Chelmsford High School, which we refer to as our NEC partner program because we have a partnership with NEC, New England Center for Children, at the high school level. We don't have a classroom right now at McCarthy, and that's just because we had a little bit of a gap of students that required this programming. It was at Parker when Parker first opened as 5-6, and now it's at McCarthy, and then in the next coming years, we'll have to shift and have programming at McCarthy as well, as the Parker students move up. So I put a little graph in for the SAIL program to kind of help see the numbers. We have a lot of students at the lower levels, at CHIPS and at the elementary level, that are requiring programming. And I think CHIPS has 22 students, Byam's at 19 with 2 classrooms, and Harrington has 3 classrooms at 25 students at the moment. And that was the elementary at K-4, obviously. Parker has 1 classroom with 8 students this year. As I said, McCarthy doesn't. And then we have 2 classrooms at Chelmsford High that have 12 students there. So in the coming years, we're anticipating, those lower grades really kind of needing to move into the middle school, which we'll have to increase some of our services there for this programming.
Are we allowed to ask questions as you go along, or do you want it at the end?
Maybe at the end, if that's okay. That make sense?
Sure.
Can you go back 2 slides, though? Just so you can see at the bottom, I did put the total number of students for this school year in each program. So we have a total of 83 students across the district right now requiring our SAIL programming. And then our PAVE program is our life skills functional program. It's for students with developmental delays or intellectual or multiple disabilities. Needs that substantially separate programming that focuses really on functional skills. And as much, as possible, we have a considerable amount of those students included in the gen ed, either for specials, sometimes science and social studies, where we can really make that inclusion time meaningful. And then we start to focus as they go through middle school into the high school, and then the 18 to 22 when they go to Valley, really focusing more on the vocational skills embedded into the day. So as I said, our STRIVE program is our social emotional program. We have our elementary program at South Row, and then Parker and McCarthy and Chelmsford High. So we have that continuum going all the way up to high school. There's a range of social emotional and behavioral supports for those students to be successful in their academics and to really access their school day. And we've really had a lot of success with students being included as much as possible in the gen ed setting. These are our students who really are learning academically on grade level, and that piece and just needing the supports in that gen ed setting for behavior regulation. So we have 54 students currently in that program. In our language-based program, which as you remember, we've kind of increased each year as the grades, as we started the program 4 years ago now. We have grades 5 through 8 covered with that. And that first cohort will be kind of moving to the high school next year. A lot of students have made great success with their reading skills. Some of them have been able to shift out of having the specialized reading, and we'll have other supports at the high school as well. And so our program really kind of mostly focuses on some ELA pullout in a small group taught on grade level, and a language-based approach for reading and writing and comprehension. They're included with the special educator going in to co-teach and work in the gen ed setting for mathematics, and then they're supported with language-based strategies across their science and social studies as well, with specifically trained paraprofessionals who work within that program. We partner with Landmark Outreach for consultation and support. So they come out every 6-8 weeks, spend time in the classrooms and with the gen ed teachers, the special education teachers, the paras, to help strengthen and support our program. We have 26 students in that program. And I want to turn it over to Shannon.
Thank you. I have promised my team I will be not long-winded tonight, because sometimes I can be when I'm talking about social emotional learning. So I do want to just kick off by just really singing the praises of our greater district team. When I'm here talking to you and family members and students at home, I'm representing a greater district team that works tirelessly to support students and families. So I just want to give a little shout out and sing the praises of our great district team. In pulling a highlight of topics, I tried to pull topics that I thought families from home would benefit from hearing about again, remembering that they're out there, and sharing avenues and ways that they can access resources. The first being Cartwheel Care. We're going into our third year of partnership with them. We have a small partnership of 25 referrals, and what Cartwheel Care is a virtual mental health clinic, meaning that all services accessed are through a virtual platform. But the reason why they're a very special partner is that it provides immediate access for our Chelmsford families and students that need either one-on-one counseling, consultation from psychiatry, parent coaching, or parent and family counseling. They also launched this year a specific wraparound approach to school avoidance, which we've just started to refer families to. So we're really, really happy with our partnership with them. The quality of care is outstanding. We are nearing the end of the year, and I think we have one referral left. And they do take private insurance, but they also allow us to do pro bono and refer families for free if there's any needs there. So again, if families at home are interested in learning more about that, please reach out to your school counselor. You can find my name and contact information on the website as well. Care Solace is a little bit different. People get them confused sometimes. They both start with C, so sometimes I say them out of context, but Care Solace is a greater referral resource that we use. We have unlimited partnership with them, so as many students, families, immediate family members of our students, our colleagues around the district, their immediate family members can use this referral resource. And they're constantly expanding as well. They provide support and services for individual therapy, psychological evaluations, partial hospitalizations or inpatient hospitalizations. And they recently expanded to BCBA support, as well as basic needs. So support with finding housing, food insecurity. So they're expanding and trying to meet the needs of families on a regular basis. The wonderful thing about Care Solace is they support our families 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year. And they also have bilingual clinicians that can receive contact from our families. So we've been really happy with them. If you look at our data and our usage, which we can do with them, they provide a platform for us. We see that families are accessing after school hours, which makes us really happy. We want to make this as convenient for families as possible and as accessible for families as possible. This year, we as a clinical team referred 137 cases. Those were in partnership with families, and then there were 101 anonymous searches, meaning on our district-wide Chelmsford-specific Care Solace page, families could research and get connected and refer themselves instead of going directly through the schools. That provides a little more anonymity for families, confidentiality, privacy. So we really like that Care Solace offers both of those options for families. College Affordable, we are on our third year partnering with them. They partner with our high school team, our high school counselors, and they're a nonprofit. And what they do is they support families that have students applying to schools and help them navigate the financial aspects of applying to schools. They do appeals for families. They help them fill out the FAFSA for families. And they offer this special Bridge to Equity program, which our counselors can refer specific families to, where they provide totally free of charge, students that are first-generation college students, families who experience a language barrier and access to technology, families experiencing extenuating financial or personal hardships. So we're allowed at Chelmsford to refer 12 families, although they've never said no. We've pushed that a little bit, and they've taken 13. So it's just been an incredible partnership. We meet once a month with them virtually for about 15 to 20 minutes. They provide webinars on a monthly basis to families. So starting sophomore year, families can jump on a virtual link and start to learn about the process, learn about the timeline of high school and when they should start thinking about applications and the financial process. So they're kind of soup to nuts. They help our families. They have been an incredible partner. A couple highlights with professional development. One thing our clinical team has engaged in throughout the year is our middle school grades 6 through 12th has focused on MyCap, my career and academic planning. This is a statewide initiative, and we've had it at high school for a long time, but the emphasis this year was really starting in 6th grade. And what's wonderful about MyCap is it brings meaning to learning for kids. They can start to think when they're in middle school at Parker, at McCarthy, why am I learning the skills that I'm learning in the classroom and how can this be applied to careers? So we start having conversations about what a career is and how to write a resume and what that means. And so we really want to match students with their areas of interest, their aptitude for certain skills, and then bring meaning to it to the students. So we worked really hard. Our middle school counselors, our high school counselors partnered together on 2 different occasions this year doing professional development to create a map for kids and how we can integrate this through the social emotional learning that we are already doing in the classroom. There's overlap in some of our health content. So we're trying to thread this conversation through multiple multidisciplinary places. So that's been a wonderful growth this year, especially for our middle school team, who it was a little bit newer for them, but they're all excited. The 3 areas, as you can see up there, personal and social, career development and education, academic and college and career planning. The STEP program, just want to highlight that. We've had it at the high school for a number of years, but we just completed year 2 at the McCarthy School. Our program grew this year. At the McCarthy School, we supported 16 students throughout the year, and at the high school, 36 students. And what the STEP classroom is the Student Transition Education Program. And it supports students that are returning to school after a hospitalization. That could be from mental health needs, or it could be from medical needs. So the idea of this classroom is to catch the student up at their readiness. So there's a lot of partnership between classroom teachers and the team that works in STEP to make sure the students are keeping up and catching up with the work that they may have missed, and then slowly integrating the students back into the classroom at their readiness. On occasion, if a student needs to use the STEP classroom for a longer period of time through Child Find. We do refer students for special education evaluations, so that's where there's a little bit of overlap. But other words, the STEP classroom, we consider it an intervention classroom. It's not a program, so it's accessible to all students, gen ed, special ed. Can I just say 2 other quick things? One thing I just want to highlight is that we've continued our partnership with Pathways to Restorative Communities. So we're continuing to do work with restorative practices. We just finished year 2 with our partnership with them. And next year, thanks to the support of our central office, we are going to continue a 3rd-year partnership. One of our goals this year was to do a training at McCarthy because they haven't had a training yet. So we have that in the works for planning, as well as consultation hours to support other schools. So we're really excited to continue our work with restorative practices. And lastly, I just want to mention a partnership with Riverside Trauma Center. We just finished up a 2-year training, a trauma-informed training on suicide prevention. So our entire district clinical team participated, social workers, counselors, and psychologists, all the way from CHIPS all the way up to high school. So it's been a great 2-year partnership. This year allowed us to have a lot of coaching and consultation time following a bigger training that we did last year. So I just want to highlight those 2 things. And then before I hand it back over, I just want to again say to families at home and students, everything I've just talked about is accessible to you, and to please reach out to your school counselor or any adult at school teacher, and we can get you connected.
So to focus and shift to our school nursing, Peggy had put a few things together for us, our nursing coordinator. And as everyone can recognize, Fenway Park, she was using the analogy, even though we would hope they maybe play a little bit better these days. If we look at the size of Fenway Park, it holds 37,755 seats if the stadium's full. And this year, up until this presentation in May, the health district offices at all of our schools have seen 38,102 students, which would fill Fenway Park plus a little bit of an overflow. Just kind of helps with an analogy there. So she just has a little bit of statistics there. The district enrollment, that's more as of now, not so much the October 1. As I said, the 38,100 visits. Of those, a high percentage, 95.6%, almost 96% of those students will come to the nursing clinic and then be able to return to class. So they're able to remain in school. This just under 16,000 medication administrations that happen in the school setting with our school nurses. And health treatments of, again, it's about a little over 16,000. And in addition, our school nursing department conducts the mandated school screenings for certain grade levels that occur, and there's about a little over 10,000 students that has occurred this year. So to totally shift gears and kind of go into our DESE coordinated program review, DESE comes out twice in the 6-year cycle. So every third year, they do Group A and Group B. So we participated this year in our Group B cycle. And so that self-assessment, we had to kind of look at the areas that they were looking for compliance and pull together a whole bunch of our practices, procedures, et cetera, and upload that for a self-assessment. And that happened for the civil rights area last spring, and then in the fall for special education. They came this past January, in end of January, for an on-site visit. So they were here in the district in a bunch of our schools and spent the day there. And then they kind of looked at everything, worked with us as well, and put together our final report. So these are the areas that Group B kind of focuses on, so what they were across both civil rights and special education. So it kind of focuses on licensure of our professionals and professional development. It has a parent-student community engagement component. It looks at the facilities and classroom observations when they were in our schools. Overall oversight, time and learning, and making sure everything has equal access. So those are the big overarching areas. So the civil rights, the highlight of the civil rights, there was a number. Group B kind of has many more civil rights areas than special education. And every single one of our civil rights areas were found to be fully implemented and in compliance. So that's the great news. I'm not going to read through each of them, but we looked at a lot of practices and uploaded a lot of our documentation for that. And then we go to the special education. So as I said, there was a lot of civil rights areas looked at. There were 10 special education areas in Group B. When we do 3 years from now, Group A, that has many more special education areas. So they looked at Child Find, our Parent Advisory Council, our CPAC, assistive technology, looking at the IEP implementation. There's one for making sure the district has an administrator of special education, and that I am licensed in that role. It looks at teacher and related service providers licensure, and registration of educational interpreters, that we have that available for like IEP meetings and can provide that for students and families that need it. Overall professional development that the district has engaged in. And then again, our special ed facilities and classrooms, and that they looked at doing program reviews. So we had submitted our district management opportunities review there and talked about the one we're doing this spring. We were compliant, fully implemented in all of them, with one minor finding for partially implementing under the special education teacher licensure. We had only one out of the 80 some odd special education teachers we have that has had, DESE's kind of shifted a little bit and had changed the license. So there was a licensure that was early childhood with and without disabilities. And now they're requiring to have like a moderate special ed licensure with that as well. So we've kind of put in the information for the corrective action for that, and the person is on her way to getting that licensure, and that should be wrapped up by the end of the year. And something that is new, and I'm going to give a lot of kudos to Joanna and her team and Donna on this, is for the first time, DESE started doing IED Part B fiscal monitoring of our grants, our federal IDEA grants. And they decided for the first time doing that, they were going to lump in with all districts that had Group B, which we won that lottery, and it was us this year. So Joanna and her team, with a little bit of help from me, had submitted countless information and uploaded it for this particular audit. And again, it looked at our 240 entitlement grant, which is our big special education IDEA grant, the 262 grants, which is early childhood, that is for CHIPS. And then sometimes the DESE gives us the 274 grant, which we've had over the last couple of years, which kind of focuses on a target professional development area or a new initiative the state's coming out with. And Chelmsford submitted all those documents, and they were in by the due date in March, and we were found fully in compliance, and no action was needed on that. So that was great news. And in fact, a little kudos, DESE reached out to us to see if we wanted to participate in one of their panels for other districts to kind of talk about the process with that. So that was a good thing.
All right, it's me. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the equity area as part of our strategic plan. This is a fairly broad area, but we've done some really, I think, important work in it that I want to highlight. The two main areas I'm going to talk about really connect back to that Special Ed Opportunities Review that DM Group completed in 2023. So there were some key findings from that Opportunities Review. And one piece that really jumped out, I'm sure you've heard this topic before, is our work with our paraeducators. So as you know, we've done a lot of work around kind of reframing and relaunching the roles and responsibilities of the paraeducator. And we've continued to work with building admin to make sure that they are refreshing and reviewing that document with their educators in their buildings. But another piece that we really wanted to focus on was around onboarding. So I think what we were kind of seeing when we looked at the Special Ed Opportunities Review was that when we're hiring new paras, and this is a district that does have quite a few paraeducators, we didn't really have a consistent process for bringing them in. So they would go through HR, but if you were assigned to Byam or you were assigned to Parker, you kind of arrived on the first day and there wasn't really any sort of like runway. So earlier this fall, Megan and I actually were part of a working group with Diane Carey and then 3 paraeducators in Chelmsford. And we met very regularly. It was terrific. It was very focused work, and we identified kind of 3 tiers of an onboarding process. So we're really excited to launch that. Just a couple of highlights are we've developed a paraeducator guidebook that we're excited for HR to share with new hires. That's really kind of a soup to nuts, sort of what do you need to know about Chelmsford, everything from technology to school calendar to who do you go to, all those sorts of things. As well as another piece that we're excited to launch is a paraeducator peer mentoring program. So this would be pairing a new hire with an existing paraeducator, and we have a few points of criteria. And that person would really be, sort of just kind of like a peer coach, a little bit of a peer that a new hire can go to those first couple months on the job, wouldn't be replacing, the work with a liaison, the work with a special education teacher, but just kind of that job-alike person those first couple months. So those are the 2 big highlights from the paraeducator work that, again, I just kind of want to give a shout out. Megan was on the committee and the other committee members because it was just really focused work, and I think we're excited to launch it and, really get some good feedback. And then the next piece is what Amy had talked about. So the other piece that we're excited about, we're sort of probably toward towards the end of it at this point, is a program review that we're doing with Case Collaborative. So again, coming out of our special ed opportunities review, one of the key findings was really looking at the elementary levels and looking at sort of where our special education service is being delivered. And what we were finding was there was a lot of pullout happening at the elementary level. And so we really wanted to take a deeper dive into learning kind of what's the decision making, what's the process, what's the consistency or lack thereof, so that we could hopefully, implement some recommendations. So Case, was all excited about this. They've done this with other districts. They were great. They gave us some real guiding questions. They've done everything from virtual focus groups. They've done surveys. They've been in the schools. So they've really taken a good look and are trying to identify, some trends that they're seeing. And then they'll be able to give us that in a report that we then are excited to look and see what action steps we can then implement to ideally, like Amy said, kind of have our special ed students in the general ed setting as much as possible, really utilize our special education teachers, and have that consistency across the buildings.
I would just add to that, one of the other things they were looking at is our SST process. So all 4 of the elementary schools kind of shared what that looks like, some of that paperwork for that pre-referral SST process there. So we can kind of have some, consistencies with that as well. And then hopefully some of this work with some of the other stuff we've done will help guide us into our next year action steps for our strategic plan. Okay.
Oh, do we want to add about the schedule sharing piece? I think it'd be good with the DM group.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would, do you want me to say?
ahead.
Yeah, no, the other piece,
It's not a slide.
it's not a slide, yeah. Is part of the work with DM group was, when they did the special ed opportunities review, was a schedule sharing component. So professional staff could go in, it was, a login they had and really kind of track their schedule for a week. And then DM group used some of that data to put into the special ed opportunities review, which is where we learned where kids were spending time, where special educators and related service providers were spending their time. And we have done a lot of work. We've done the paraeducator piece. We've done a lot of work with the new IEP and really working with our teams around the importance of general ed setting. It's not always just a go to pull out, and really being thoughtful about that. So actually just this week, we're doing another schedule sharing. And so we're excited to get that data and hopefully see some changes with some more time with inclusion, so we can really kind of see, that compare apples and apples and see all the work that we've done. I'm excited for that.
And to kind of wrap up, just a little update on CPAC. So at the end of last year, we had our board members had moved on for various reasons. So we had started the year really without a CPAC board. I had reached out to the Federation for students with, children with special needs. And Leslie, who kind of spearheads the CPAC with the district piece, had agreed. She came out to do a presentation for parents kind of about the role of a CPAC and the process for that. She said it usually takes about a good year to get it up and running and an interim board in place. So that was kind of our first steps, which took place in December. Then we had multiple meetings. We had a meeting with all parents. We had multiple meetings with the parents that were expressing interest in helping get this interim board off the ground. And that got down to a group of parents who have stepped forward. I think there's 5 of them. And we did some more intensive work with meetings with them to kind of get an interim board in place. And so I'm happy to say we have an interim board for CPAC. This board will kind of stay in place through all of next school year. The goal is to have, they've done some updates on the Facebook CPAC at Chelmsford page, and so, getting their website that was once up and running going, and their information is available there. So they're going to work to set up regular meetings. We'll schedule them out for next year. We're going to schedule some workshops as well. And the big ending piece is our next, which is for all parents. We've sent out messaging, and we'll do a reminder at the end of the week. But we have the first CPAC meeting with the interim board on next Tuesday evening at 6:30.
May 26th.
That's a
And thank-
virtual meeting, right?
Virtual
Virtual
meeting,
meeting.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
they're talking about both and maybe doing a bit of a hybrid. The virtual has been really successful because the feedback from families has been that it's easier for them to be able to listen in and/or participate. And I will say, since we've had more virtual meetings, the participation
Yeah.
has been much increased.
Yeah, a definite thank you to our families. I think when we were working on the DESI review, we were under the impression that we may have to fill out some paperwork for a CPAC waiver because we didn't have an established CPAC. But then when we actually went back and looked at the outreach and whatnot, that wasn't the case. And I think the meeting that Leslie did to kind of talk about restarting a CPAC, we had almost 50 parents attend virtually. So I think a real thank you to the families because parents really do want to be involved. So we're excited for that.
Parents make a difference.
Great
Yeah.
partnership with families
Yeah.
and the district. And then families give input as well.
You had over 50 people respond. That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
super.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks
thank
to
you.
Dennis, he was our liaison. I don't know if that stays, but
Nope,
was at
I'm
least
still on
this
there,
year.
no.
Yep, and attended our meetings
Yeah.
as well, so.
So, and that's coming up, Dennis.
It's coming up.
There we
Next
go.
Monday.
He'll
On
report
the
to
calendar.
us. And the liaison after.
That's
So-
student services, so we've been busy.
Yes, you have been busy, very, very busy. And I know, for example, I know Shannon gets involved in so much more than this, so that was a limited thing. What you guys presented was a summary, basically, of everything that's been going on, and it is pretty intense. Anybody, questions, comments?
I have no questions for you this time. No. I want to tell you, I am really impressed with, even in the past year, how much you've done. I've always asked you a lot of questions, and I feel you've been responsive to all of them, and you've taken action on them, and I think it's wonderful. You know, we put a lot of this in perspective. When I was a kid in school, no one got services like this at all. Even my own kids, one generation ago, only a few of these things were in place. When I retired 9 years ago, most of this even wasn't in place. And then the number of things you've done to increase what's out there for our kids is fabulous. I think of the needs of the kids that you serve. They're very, very complex and very, very varied. And I hear from parents who are frustrated, scared, even dissatisfied. But if you really look at the work that's been done, I mean, they may not have that perspective to see so much of this is so new. And yet you're providing for all of these different, as I said, varied and complex needs kids have. And it's wonderful that we've been able to bring so much of this in-house. So I have no questions for you. I'm really pleased to hear about all this.
And I do think also a big kudos and shout out to our special ed staff from, our department all the way to paras. I mean, to your point, I think, years ago, if you were a special ed teacher, more than likely the students in front of you had maybe more of your traditional learning needs. And now as a special ed teacher, your classroom is very diverse of disabilities and needs that students have. So I think just a shout out to the staff we have as well.
But that kind of goes to being able to keep a lot of our students in our community with
Right.
their peers and those that they live in the community with as well.
Yep.
And it's been a support from central office and school committee as well.
Thank you. Diana?
I agree. When we have 21% of our students identifying as needing special education services, that is a big percentage of our students, and that has grown through recent years. And so I think it's really great that there's still such an emphasis on doing everything better, not just keeping up with it, which is wonderful. I was also really delighted to hear all of the data and information you shared, so thank you. I always like hearing about all of the different pieces that fall under this very big umbrella of student services. I had one question. So this is a really like in the weeds question. It's about a specific thing on a specific slide. On the integrated monitoring review civil rights slide, CR 17A, it says use of physical restraint on any student enrolled in a publicly funded education program. Does that mean that we have to be able to offer physical restraint? Does that mean that we have an approved protocol? Does it mean that, I'm just really curious what that check mark means.
The check mark means we were found in compliance with DESE.
So it's a
we have-
compliance thing.
It is a compliance. So we have criteria that we have to meet according to DESE. There's
Right.
logs that have to be filled out. There's details about, if and when it's used. We have procedures and protocols that are kind of written out. So all that gets uploaded, so they review all of that to make sure it hits all the criteria as well. They also went, when they visited, this has been happening for the past 4 years now, anyway, in the reviews. When they come out to the schools, they speak to the building principals, and they speak to the BCBAs in the building, and they talk about that, and they review the every year we have to put a certified for the district, any restraint log, it's a DESE form that gets filled out and submitted, and they just make sure that we're actually doing that in real time, if and when it happens. So it's meeting all that criteria.
So we're
And it's in a
in terms of
crisis,
those
yeah.
processes and protocols, we are in compliance with all the things that DESE is looking for. The way it was written, I was like, does this mean that they're just checking that we do this? I wasn't sure what it asked for.
Yeah, every check there kind of meant they
It's in
reviewed what we
compliance.
submitted in the self-assessment, or they reviewed and looked at, asked questions, got stuff back from us, or saw when they were here on site, and they were found to be in compliance.
All right, thank you.
I just wanted to say, great work to the whole team. One thing that I caught during that is I'm really glad that you are working with kids that may have ideations on the suicide, children and kids. A lot of the kids that are around now went through COVID, and they've had their own social emotional issues and concerns. And I feel like in a lot of districts that's it's an under-discussed topic. So I'm glad you kind of approach it in a front-facing way. And thank you for your work.
Yeah, and just again, a compliment to all the programming. I also like the fact that we've taken the findings from the special ed review and really put them into implementation, especially with the paraprofessionals and the roles and responsibilities. Having this now kind of orientation program that's going to help. Have you found any improvements already on some of the things we've been doing in terms of just people understanding their roles and how the main teacher and the paraprofessionals are collaborating, that type of thing? Have you found anything yet?
Yeah, we did.
I think we have, and even when we're in buildings and stuff, I've been in meetings or talking with teams, or we had consults and stuff, and I've had gen ed teachers, talking about the shift in the role, of the para. So I'm seeing glimpses when I'm out there of that understanding, which is the work that was done by district, but also the principals at the levels that are continuing that work and working with that document and reviewing it, because I think one of the things was a lot of times the kids were absent and they came back in, the para in the classroom might have kind of caught them up on missed lessons and things like that. And I'm hearing them talk about a shift in practice and a shift in what's happening, so that, because that was one of the things that had popped out, that there was doing some direct instruction, first-time instruction. I mean, review and repetition is fine, but that first knowledge, and I've really seen that as one of the bigger shifts, I think, that I've heard.
Yeah, and I think the other piece was last year, so 24-25 school year, when we had the professional development sessions, we had an exit ticket, and these were targeted for paraeducators. We had an exit ticket at the end of each, and they had the same questions, and it was really targeted right back to the roles and responsibilities. So we were tapping into not only you as a paraeducator, what's your understanding, are you feeling confident, but what is this looking like in your daily practice? Are you feeling like there's some change? And it was all all extremely positive. The other piece that has always been a big ask, and so we've worked really hard this year with some of our PD time, is around building in some of that collaboration with special educators, because as we know, time is what we don't have, right? So, trying to build that in, and that's been really positively received as well. So I would say yes, overall.
Great. That's
Yeah,
good to hear.
yeah.
But it's something we gotta continuously
Absolutely.
reinforce and continue to
Right.
do and set,
Right.
in practice.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Me personally, Megan, wow, CHIPS is amazing.
I couldn't agree more.
Do we find that the children, you have 100 and,
97.
now, do all those 197 children transfer over to first grade, to kindergarten? How does that work?
Not at the same time, because we have kids from 3 to 5. They come to us right out of early intervention, a lot of them. So it's usually about a third of that every year. Some years are a little heavier, some are a little lighter. This is about an average year. So about a third of that population will be moving on to kindergarten this year.
That's amazing. Now, how is CHIPS funded? How does that work?
Oh, well,
I mean, we
our
have
staff,
tuition.
the majority of it, staff is in the local budget for that. We have a revolving fund as well that kind of supplements some of the materials and curriculum and a little bit of our, our staffing. I think our part-time social worker maybe is part of that. And then the other piece is we have that 262 grant, when I talked about the fiscal monitoring of that is a little bit of federal funds that is specifically for preschool.
Wow,
Combination.
it's an amazing program, it really is. Now, Shannon, I'm going to ask you a couple of things because I want you to talk more about social emotional learning. I know you dealt a lot with the services that you're providing, that we provide as a district, and opportunity to reach out through different systems to get assistance. But I also know that you're running a curriculum in the school for social emotional type of learning. How has that been, and at each level, how is that working?
Yeah, so it's going very well. We have a specific intervention block. It's a social emotional learning block that we have K up to grade 8, all the way up to McCarthy, and we're using a a digital curriculum called Second Step. It's an evidence-based curriculum. They're a nonprofit, which I really like. We get a lot of outreach from for-profit companies trying to sell us new curriculum, but we've been really happy with just how it's specifically aligned to the Castle curriculum and expectations around that. At the high school, we use something called Character Strong, and so we have a block designated as well to social emotional learning in high school. And we're working really hard to partner with our high school students, taking their feedback. We're trying to, draw themes from the social emotional curriculum to support their transition as they transition from high school to a young adulthood. So we're looking at ways like maybe senior year where they can do like a civic project or something like a passion project to use the skills that they've learned through the social emotional learning. So that's in the works right now. So our counselors are partnering around that. And again, that's based on student feedback.
Yeah, because I just think, I've always felt that it's the whole person, definitely the whole person, and the intellect is only one part of that needs to be educated. There's so much more. So wonderful. I have really enjoyed the presentation. Any other questions, comments, anything else? And I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come and present to us. Yay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good night.
Please pass a water.
You want a water?
Make me to go this way.
Whichever way they need to
Stretch your
go.
legs.
Yeah, because there's no getting
Yeah, no
past
one
that.
can pass.
Just take a moment while we transition. And
Do you need water? You go.
No, I got one.
good night.
Good night, guys. Thank you
so
very much.
Good end of the year. We are moving right along. Item number 3 on our agenda is fiscal year 2026 recommended one-time budget purchases.
Thank you. Yes, third up tonight is a continuation of some budget recommendations that we had considered over the last couple of months. A few meetings back in March, we had approved just under $1 million worth of some one-time purchases utilizing some of our expected and anticipated extra revenue at the end of the fiscal year. We've worked since then to kind of refine some quotes. A lot of it is dependent on being able to get product quickly and whatnot as the school year concludes. We had to get some additional quotes for some of the physical work that was going to be happening within the schools. And tonight before you is a list of another $250,213 of some one-time purchase recommendations. So I'll kind of collapse these together for you a little bit. But one of the big numbers kind of relates to South Row, the library. As you know, this summer, we have a lot of work going on at South Row with interior roof ceilings being done in the building. The exterior roof is being done. One of the things Bill Silver and his group have done each year is try to update one of the elementary libraries. And this year, we figured if we've got so much activity happening at South Row anyway, let's just actually get the library done at the same time. We've done Byam and we've done Harrington. So South Row was up next. So the first item, the second item is all kind of related to, actually the third item as well, the South Row Library. And trying to get that up to speed to give them a new one like the other elementary schools. Then we have,
I'm sorry, can I just ask a really quick question about that specific one before you move
Yeah, sure.
on? The wall removal, does that mean it's
very funny. So you know how in some of our buildings, we actually have these temporary walls that are in there? So like at McCarthy.
divide it.
Like a divider wall. Ironically, there's a dividing wall at South Row that's splitting the library from the computer room. It was in a frame, but it's basically just drywall. It's not like a fixed wall.
Right.
So we're removing that wall so that we can actually open up the space and make the library bigger between the library and the computer room.
Oh, so they're going to be combined into a single
It's going to be
room?
like a much bigger room, and it's going to be all completely outfitted with new furnishings.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So again, we've been kind of putting up walls because we've had those dividing walls. We wanted to remove the accordion walls, but on this one, we're actually taking it down to just open up the space. Then we have some furniture at the high school for the school store. Going to try to do some upgrades to that particular building. At Chelmsford High School as well, we need some additional electrical outlets run to the new, I'm sorry, the name of the room is escaping me, kind of the wood shop down in the basement. Just some smaller items from Brian Curley, some different door openers and closers at Byam. Another major project at the high school, this has been requested for years. We're finally able to kind of get around to doing it. This is refurbishing and remodeling the interior nurses suite in the building. It's kind of a funky setup now where the students go in and there's a kind of like a glass wall that separates the front from the back. It's going to be completely taken down, remodeled the whole space, but there is some new flooring going in, some asbestos abatement in the old flooring. Again, we've got walls going down, going up, but that's going to be a complete rehab of the nurses' space at the high school. And then just a couple of smaller items. We've been having some difficulty with the loading dock door at South Row, so just putting a new door in over there. Harrington as well, looking to do some new furniture in the CHS engineering classrooms. And then we usually just have a little standing line item. As we're doing some of these projects in the schools, we try to get rid of just some of the debris and some of the old stuff that's been hanging around. We'll kind of purge even as teachers are cleaning out their rooms at the end of the year. It's just a good opportunity to do that. So we just contract for some random dumpsters to just be able to kind of get some of that old stuff out of the buildings. So there's just a line item in there for that. But the total recommendation before you tonight is $250,213. And this would, again, continue some of that one-time spending.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay. Hearing none. Susan, a motion to approve if you would?
I move that we approve the fiscal year 2026 one-time purchase recommendations totaling $250,213 as presented today.
Second.
Okay, Susan?
Aye.
Diana?
Aye.
Okay, John?
Aye.
And Dennis? Aye. And me is aye, so it's, everybody says aye.
Great.
Unanimous here. All right, we're moving on to number 4. And it's our fiscal year 2026 recommended budget transfers.
Yep, so I'll ask Joanna to walk you through these. These relate primarily to those one-time purchases that we just approved, moving money in the correct locations to be able to make those purchases.
Thank you. Yep. So there's 3 budget transfers on the memo, and the first one is requesting budget transfers from 8 DESI categories into 4 DESI categories to cover this $250,213 for the one-time purchases you just approved. Want to take these one at a time, and then?
Sure.
So that's the first one.
Any questions? All right, if there are none, then I'm going to ask for a motion, please.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve the fiscal year 2026 local operating budget transfers totaling $250,213 for the Chelmsford Public Schools as presented.
Okay, could I have a second?
I will second that.
Wonderful. And we do have to do roll call, I believe. So Susan?
Aye?
Diana?
Aye.
Dennis?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
And me is aye. Again, we are unanimously passing this. Next one.
Thank you. The second one is we're recommending that we prepay fiscal year 2027 out-of-district special ed tuitions in fiscal year 2026 for up to amount of $1,870,705. And just as a reminder, a refresher, we did the prepayments last year, and that's part of the reason why we're favorable overall in our budget, and we're recommending to do this again for next fiscal year. Amy Reese and her secretary reached out to the different private schools and collaboratives, and this is the amount she thinks she can get to.
Okay.
And do we just do prepayment with Valley, or do we do it for more than Valley?
We do, well, actually, we do the least amount with Valley because of the credits, and it's just kind of another level of estimating that is, it's doable, but it might not be on the button. And we want this to kind of be right on the mark. Like, you don't want to do it with a student you think is changing a placement or you think is moving. You want to do it that. So we do it with the private placements. So that would be up to 3 months. And then for the collaboratives, up to the whole year. And for Valley, we're actually only doing 5 students who are Amy's very sure that they're going to be there and for the whole year, and it won't complicate the credits too much.
Wow, it's a process. Anybody else, any other questions? Okay, so hearing none, could I have a motion, please, Susan, for this one?
Okay, I move that we approve the fiscal year 2026 local operating budget transfer totaling up to $1,870,705 to fund prepaid out-of-district tuitions for the Chelmsford Public Schools.
Second.
Thank you. And
Aye?
Diana?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
And Dennis? Yes, aye. Here we go again. We've unanimously passed this one. We go on to our third.
Thank you.
Joanna.
The third one, we've done this one in the past too. So we budget for the retirement incentive. So in the future fiscal year, so if somebody is of the 8 or 9 teachers who are retiring, a few of them are eligible for the 25% retirement incentive because they were hired before 2008 and they let us know by November. So some of these teachers have requested that they receive their payout in July, and some of the teachers requested they receive the payout in January. So this is recommending that for those teachers that have requested the payout in July, which is fiscal year 27, we pay for it in June, which is fiscal year 26. We also have some funds in this category because we did this last year. So the budget transfer amount is $51,380. However, the total amount that's going to be paid out in June, if you approve this, is $100,683. The reason I say that number is because if you approve this, then we will be favorable in that account in the fiscal 2027 budget.
So there's like 50,000 still in account, and then we're adding another 50, okay?
Correct.
Okay.
Staying ahead of it.
It buys you a little cushion. It buys you a little wiggle room as we get into next year.
It's kind of eerie to be hearing fiscal 2027 already.
know.
It really is. All right, so any other questions, concerns? All right. Susan, if you
I
would.
move that we approve the fiscal year 2026 local operating budget transfer for $51,380 from the accounts noted to the employee separation cost account as presented.
Second.
Okay, Susan?
Aye.
Diana?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Dennis?
Aye.
And for me is aye. And thank you very much, Joanna, for all this.
Thank you for the approval.
Thank you. All right, we are moving on. Item number 5 on our agenda is literacy and mathematics intervention and supports. Dr. Hirsch, the floor is yours.
Yes, the floor is mine. So you have in your packet a lengthy report. It's about 7 pages. I'm going to just try and give you, a
Okay.
summary of what's in here, the meat of it. And so I think there's been a lot of conversations just about, more so about literacy, but mathematics is part of this as well. And as a district, obviously, we emphasize just that early identification of students that might need some additional assistance in academics, whether it's literacy or mathematics, could be both, depending on the child, so that we can look at closing some of those learning gaps for students. So I broke this down a little bit with ELA first, and I'll talk about math afterwards. So the district in general is just really for ELA trying to focus on those literacy skills, so closing those foundational skills such as phonics, right? Your first early skills, the decoding, your fluency, looking at how we're going to what type of interventions students could have to then boost them up a little bit further, and then any high needs learners. So the district, right now, the district employs 12 DESE certified reading specialists in the district. So our reading specialist, this is a regular ed initiative, so this is beyond special ed, right? So special ed has its own piece in this, but reading specialist is a regular ed service. You do not need to be a special ed student to see a reading specialist in the district. So we have 12 currently in the district, and what they try to do is give, we call it double dose, meaning you're getting your instruction from your regular ed teacher, but then you will also get additional instruction from the reading specialist. It shouldn't be separate from what's happening in the classroom. So right now, I gave you a breakdown. We typically have 2 reading specialists at all of our schools until you start getting to McCarthy in the high school, where there'll only be 1 reading specialist, thus giving us the 12 reading specialists together. These reading specialists combined, the 12 of them, see 366 students. This is in the current school year. So that's how many students are seeing our reading specialists for additional support in reading based on the criteria, which I'll talk about next. So a reading specialist is usually doing like a small group literacy intervention. They're doing explicit reading instruction, so very targeted skills, decoding, fluency, comprehension, all the good things that go with reading. They do progress monitoring, so they're seeing how these students are doing as they're giving these lessons to see if they need to continue with reading support or if they can then, kind of exit out of the program. Because reading is not like you stay in there forever. The whole goal of going to a reading specialist is to see the reading specialist, remediate those gaps, and then go back into regular ed without additional supports. However, doesn't mean you can't go back in. So I don't want people to think that this is a class that you're staying in forever. Hopefully the goal is to move you forward. So we look at the students that are below the benchmarks to identify them. And then in addition to the reading specialists, so those are certified DESE teachers, we have reading interventionists, and tutors. So the interventionists are at our Title I schools, and right now our Title I schools are Byam, Harrington, and McCarthy Middle School, and I'll talk about them when we get to some of the math pieces. We have reading tutors at our other elementary schools. We have a total of 8.5 reading interventionists across the district. Harrington, I split in half because they're doing a little bit of a different model. I'll talk about that later. So they have, right now for reading interventionists, they have 2.5, and it's because as a Title I school, they're required to have more than some of, based on the poverty level. But there is typically about 2 reading interventionists at the school in addition to your reading specialists. And of those reading interventionists for those elementary schools, 153 students are receiving intervention. And again, the goal is to have them go in, remediate some skills, exit out. Perhaps they have to come back, but it's basically a fluid system. It ebbs and flows based on the children's needs. So they're not in there, like, it's not a sentence that you stay in there forever. So moving forward, in math, we do not have math specialists because it's not a DESE license. We have mathematic interventionists at our schools, and this is where I was talking about McCarthy. So we have, for interventionists at all of our schools, we have a total of 10.5. Again, Harrington having more than the other schools based on their status for Title I. And their goal is really to kind of look at, again, those foundational number sense and algebra and algebraic equations, because those are your 2 foundational skills K through 8. And they provide, again, targeted intervention for those students that are needing that support. And as a group, they work together too, and they actually work with our math specialists that we have that are supporting our teachers as well. So there's a lot of data that goes involved. They meet as a group. They also meet with the ELA as well, so they're not just math only. They actually work together as a functioning intervention group. They meet with Kelly Rogers often, Catherine Richards, who is our math coordinator. Kelly Rogers is in charge of Title I, so she is making sure that those schools have the amount of coverage that they need. So as a group, they really talk about, like, what are some of the interventions that they're doing across the board, students that they might be seeing. So it's a great functioning group. They're really fun to work with, actually. But for mathematics, so those 10.5 interventionists are seeing 232 students across those schools. And again, we have interventionists and tutors based on if you're a Title I school or not. And then to be part of some of these programs, we obviously have clear expectations and criteria for going into these programs. So what I did in this report, it depends on what grade level you're in as to which of the criteria they're looking at or combination of. So I listed the 13 criteria that may be used, but this goes K through 8. So it actually goes to the high school too, because we have the one reading specialist that's up there that uses a very different testing than some of the elementary and middle schools. So there's a list of 13 different criteria that can be used. They're not all inclusive. It just depends on what grade level you're in. So for example, obviously if you're in grade 8, they're probably not looking at the phonics piece because that's probably in place. So that's like the best example I can give you. So even though phonics is a piece of data that we'd use to see if a child needed reading, it most likely wouldn't be for your upper grades based on the child's needs. And then in mathematics, there's 2 different criteria, if you're an elementary school student or if you're a middle school student. So the elementary is looking obviously at your iReady diagnostic. There's looking specifically at those domains in number and operation and algebraic thinking. There's also, if we're looking to see how the intervention worked for those students beforehand, if it was working or do they need more? Because sometimes the intervention isn't working and you need to move forward with maybe looking at a study team to see if their child needs some additional supports. And then working with the teachers and getting their classroom recommendations as to what they're seeing in the classroom. And then for mathematics, again, we do use the iReady data, but we're looking at that Tier 2 and Tier 3 at-risk piece for the data that we receive from iReady. We have MCAS scores at this point when they're getting into the middle school years. Their current grade, because they're receiving an actual letter grade opposed to a standards-based grade. And then again, talking with the teachers to see where the concerns are and what they're seeing. At McCarthy, we've been really targeting because part of our strategic plan is to increase those students in grade 8. So we've been looking at our grade level 8 students specifically and having them have after-school intervention time because it works with their schedule and also getting them home with buses based on they have a very complicated schedule at middle school because they have to get to all their other classes. So it's been working out for us. We have a total of 23 students that are seeing those interventionists tutors, whatever we're calling them. It's which are our actual teachers, working with those students after school. So in general, I know there's a lot of talk about the literacy and what we're doing, but we do see a lot of students beyond special ed. I think most people, when they hear students aren't doing well in school, they're thinking special ed, but there's more to it than just special ed. And our teachers are actually very skilled in tier 2 interventions within their classrooms. So a child may not be going to a reading specialist or a math interventionist. That teacher would be working with them in a small group. So there's even larger numbers, but it's just hard to quantify exactly how many students in the classroom are in a tier 2 for a teacher, rather than actually seeing our interventionist or reading specialists. One of the things I put in here, because I know there's a lot of talk about the data and how our students haven't been doing well. It's not even just in Chelmsford. I've been hearing this on the news nationally. There seems to be this big pinpoint around 2017, and it is a very pivotal point. So in 2017, that is when the MCAS actually changed from the legacy test, which we were all familiar with, where you had the needs improvement, proficient, advanced, to the next generation testing that everybody has, not to be confused with next generation science standards. And that is when they changed the actual standards for ELA and mathematics. So that is in the English world, we call that the inciting incident, right? Now here comes the rising action. At that point, that's when we transitioned into the new testing, and that is when accountability changed. So they did a lot of like what they call equal percentile linking. Don't ask me to get into the mathematics on it. I'm not gonna be able to help you with that. But that is where they were able to say, if they did this before, this is what it would look like now. But then in the middle of all of this, we ended up having COVID. Then we weren't tested. Then all of a sudden, the proficiency levels went up, so we were doing better. Now they raised the bar higher on us. And when we had the modified testing, we had students that were taking MCAS at home, right, somewhere in school. It was the whole, you mask, be, far away from each other. Then we came back to the next generation testing, which is the test that they really wanted to come out with. And then after that, I forgot this part too. We have a new testing company too. We're in year 2 of the new testing company. Then they removed the graduation requirement, so we're not even really sure when the students are taking it at the high school. We won't know that for a few years on, are they actually taking it seriously, or are they hearing, oh, this test doesn't count, right? And then moving forward, we just found out that they're gonna redesign the ELA test. So I think what makes it a little frustrating and it's not just Chelmsford, I talked to my peers, what we find a little frustrating is that we're missing out on that trend data, right? I don't feel comfortable with a 3 to 5 year trend data, because there's been so many changes in MCAS to find out where our students are really lying. So we're really focusing in on our internal benchmarks, because we know those, they haven't changed a lot for us, and it at least gives us something that we can be actionable on in the middle of a school year, not waiting till the end to find out, oh, kids can't do this. Now we actually look at that stuff. So I wanted that to be a consideration when speaking to people, or you hear conversations, or you hear things on the news, because again, this is not just a Chelmsford thing, this is nationally. We're hearing this across the board, that students are not performing as well, but there's a lot of factors that go into why they're not performing well, or we don't really even have all the answers based on our state data. So that's just my little aside. But as a district, I mean, we will be definitely moving forward with, refining our literacy programs with intervention and math. So I wanted to mention Harrington. So for example, typically at the schools, especially at your elementary schools, somebody would be a reading interventionist or a math interventionist, and they could see kindergarten students, grade 2 student. They could see a combination of 3, 4 students, because they're just focusing on that. Harrington wasn't finding as much success with that way of scheduling students, so they wanted to try something different, and this is the first year of doing it, and we're kind of excited to see how it comes out. They have the interventionists, but they assigned them to a grade level. So you may be doing math and ELA, but you are only at first grade. So you really get to know those teachers, the students, because it is hard when you're flipping from grade level, and then, well, this teacher would like to see it this way, and this teacher would like to see it that way, and this student is in this grade level. They actually become part of the team. So we're gonna see, we'll have to wait till we get our final data to see if they saw some movement with that, because the other schools are very interested in that model as well. So that's why you see like I gave it 2.5, but those interventionists are actually math and reading interventionists, but at a grade level rather than a grade span. Does that make sense? So, well, to be continued, right? We'll let you know how that goes. But it was great that they were thinking outside the box to make sure, and it was helping them for scheduling too, because it is hard, because you just heard from special ed that we don't want to be pulling kids out of the regular ed classroom. There's only so much time in the day, so push-in may not be appropriate for some of the students. They may need to be pulled out, so scheduling that is very difficult. It's probably easier to do it when the person's on team with the students. And then, obviously, we're gonna be trying to strengthen those initiatives with the special ed staff to make sure that students are not being pulled from multiple services, because you can still be a special ed student and receive intervention depending on what your IEP goals are. So you might have a student that has an IEP goal for math, but they might need a little bit of support in reading, so they can still see an interventionist. It all just depends on what that student needs. And then just really looking at that subgroup performance, and then looking at our data to see if the model is working and any refinements we have to make.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Any questions?
So first of all, I just wanted to express my appreciation for the level of detail and information gathered on these 7 or 8 pages, which I really appreciated the opportunity to review over the last couple of days. I had a couple of specific questions that are more kind of thinking about long-term planning for things that are directly under the purview of this board, such as budget. Do we have any information coming from the teachers and particularly, I guess, the reading specialists about whether the services that we are offering are adequate to what the demand is? In other words, do we have enough reading specialists for the level of need that we're seeing? Do we have, the right type and number of math interventionists? I know we don't have a technical math specialist to meet the needs that we're seeing from students, or is there any tracking being done for students who probably are below grade level but aren't being served because we just don't have the staff capacity for it? Is there anything like that you know?
Yeah, so it is basically based on the criteria, right? So the current staffing meets the criteria, and that criteria has ebbed and flowed over the years. I've looked at, like I said, I listed everything, so let's just take reading, because they have more assessments than mathematics does. So I've looked at, how it's changed from, year over year, and how they're making sure that they're not missing students. So they do change that criteria, because they were like, oh, well, we really didn't need to see these students because they didn't really need our services. So that's from the reading specialist. I can only speak about the reading specialist at this point. So they have changed the criteria. So based on our current criteria that we have now, the staffing levels are good. The other piece here is that the interventionists are actually funded through Title I grant money. We have plenty of funding for that.
Right.
I think where we get a little stuck, and we have enough interventionists right now, is getting people to actually apply for the positions too, right? So it's not a money issue, it's sometimes a people issue for us. But with a lot of persistence and a lot of marketing, we do end up getting some very, very well-qualified interventionists, and that meets the need based on the Title I grant, right? And then as a district, anybody that we're funding through the operating budget as a tutor is very well-funded. So yes, the money is not the issue, it's getting the people that are available to do the positions.
Right, but at this point, we don't have kids who are on a waiting list to get reading services or math services. That was sort of my point.
And what I said earlier too is that you shouldn't be staying in these interventions. It's not like a full year piece. Some kids are, let's call it what it is, but at the end of the day, you're really hoping that they reassess at mid-year, and then, okay, these kids are positioned to do well, let's, release, and then let's bring in the next group. And it's gonna change every year based on the students and how many are coming in.
And then I know the way that, at least, I'm going to go back to reading for a second, the way that it's described is that the kind of intervention students are getting from reading specialists is sort of increased dosage with the same kind of instruction that they're getting in the classroom. What happens if there's a student in, let's say, 5th grade who their primary area of need is around, say, structured things that aren't necessarily being taught in 5th grade? So, for example, maybe they're behind in some of those phonics areas that aren't taught past, the end of foundations, or there's some other fundamental things that that are holding them back when they're in older grades. What kind of support services are available for students like that who don't have an identified IEP but might require more structured literacy support?
The reading specialists would be the ones giving them that type of support, but most likely if we were in 5th grade, and let's just take phonics, that student would probably have already been referred to the student study team and was probably in queue for special ed and specialized reading at that point, because that would be a very large gap for a 5th grader to not have their phonics skills in place. However, if it is something that is like more targeted, like their fluency, or, they have identified, because there are students that have IEPs that do see the reading specialists too as well. Like we don't, it's not like you can't go into that, but most likely they have a specialized reading program. The reading specialist would be the one doing more of that intense targeted instruction, not the interventionist. The interventionist really should be supporting the standards within that classroom and making sure that student gets retaught the lesson, or looks at it a different way, or approaches it a different way. So I would say it would be the reading specialist that would be seeing those students.
So when the need is there, the students are able to receive instruction in areas that may go beyond the explicit curriculum that is
Correct.
for their grade.
That's the real goal of the reading specialist, because they are a specialized person that
Right.
should be remediating a learning gap, where the interventionist is seeing a student that's just right on that cusp, but they need that little bootleg up.
Need a little bit more instruction
And they
to,
need it retaught
fully
again,
understand.
or maybe need a quick lesson on some type of a foundational skill, whether it's mathematics, or to then be able to do the lesson, right? They missed a piece that won't let them get to the actual lesson, but it's not that they're so far behind that they couldn't get to that. They just might need a quick remediation of that, or a reteach of a specific skill.
okay.
So like when you think number sense, right, they might need a quick refresh on number sense in order to then subtract, multiply, divide.
Great. All right, thank you. And the last thing is a comment. I am also eager to hear how things go at the piloted program
Yeah.
at Harrington. I happen to have a friend who's one of the interventionists in that program, and I was curious because I know that's not what is happening at some of the other schools. So I've been kind of paying a little bit of attention to that, and I hope to hear how it goes, because I can see the benefit of integrating more of these staff into sort of the grade level experience, and having them, although they don't come with necessarily the same background as, let's say, a specialist would for ELA, they will get to know the curriculum and materials at a greater depth, would be my inference, at least, if they're working in a given grade level.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting, because I can see how it makes sense. And then I just think people are used to the traditional model, and there was a lot of conversations around that. I'm like, yeah, let's try it. Let's see what happens. And there was some pangs about that too, with some of the teachers too. Like they were like, what's going on? That's where we're going to get a lot of that anecdotal data that we don't have, right? How did that work?
Well, I look forward to seeing what the data say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thanks for putting it together.
Thank you.
And just thank you. This is exactly what I was hoping to get.
Yes,
Just all of this in one place.
yes,
Thank you, I appreciate it.
thank you.
Still up?
Okay,
Still on.
and Dr. Hirsch is still
Still here.
here, and she's going to continue now with a different presentation
No.
on the K-6 literacy curriculum pilot update.
Yeah, this is just a quick update, let's stay on literacy. So we did, if you remember, I gave the presentation just on the whole adoption process, what you would do no matter if it's literacy or math. So we were able to put together, this spring our goal was to put together the team to start reviewing some of the different curriculum products out there for literacy to pilot for the 26-27 school year. This was a group of 15 people. It was K-6 with teachers, admin, coordinators. we had our vendors come in, and we were very purposeful on which vendors to bring in. So we looked at DESI's Curate list, and we were also making sure that we were incorporating more of a vertical alignment of products, right? So there's many products out there that could be on the Curate list. However, we were looking for one that would take the students K through 6, rather than chunking it up like this product does K through 2, and then this product does a 3 through 5. And also being mindful of the fact that down the road, hopefully our fourth graders will be going into a new building with our 5, 6 teachers, right? So you don't want choppy curriculum products for that reason, as well as when you're learning like the vocabulary that goes along with the program. It is so much easier for the receiving teacher to have students that have been trained with that vocabulary, rather than being like, oh, we used to call this, now we're gonna call it that, right? It's helpful for the students, it's helpful for the teachers, it just makes it a little bit more seamless. So we had brought in 5 different vendors to, with the actual presenters and the account managers to present their products to us. We were in this room, it was great, we had great lunch. And we spent a full day with these vendors to just, and a lot of the material, they sent us all the material, it's all sitting on my side of the building right now, and we had the teachers go through it with them to kind of just get an overview of which products would be good for Chelmsford to take a look at. So we did that back on March 25th. Now, what happened was, timing is everything for the Chelmsford Public Schools. One of the things I've learned is that Curate, when they approve programs, they approve it for 6 years. A lot of these programs were approved back prior to 2017 to 2020. So I'm like, oh, what does that mean? So many of these programs have come out with their newer product, and they're in an expedite process with Curate and have received their approval at this point. So what we found out is that Wit and Wisdom, which was one of the products, their product was a 2020 product and was canceling out because it's now 2026. So they had already had their new product called Arts and Letters. So we had to call them back to bring us that one because we weren't going to look at a 2020 product, not at this level of detail and cost for a district. So we grabbed the group again on the 30th to look specifically just at that one product, which is Arts and Letters, which is the updated version of Wit and Wisdom, for anybody that's familiar with these products. So that's just a little aside. So we had the 5 groups come in, and then we just did a quick, after each group, we did a quick plus delta kind of conversation. I took notes, but then I sent out surveys so people could give individual feedback, because sometimes it's kind of hard in a large group to give your feedback and, not want everybody to kind of hear your side of the story. You want to have your own personal feedback. So after I went through the surveys, there was some, definite yeses and nos. One of the no's was the it was CKLA, right? So it's Core Knowledge, Language Arts. That program it received the lowest ranking from the group, which was very interesting. And then what we found was Wit and Wisdom at the time, because that was the first survey I sent out, that received the highest rating, and the other 3 were equal. It was right, they all received the equal one. So I was like, okay, we knew that CKLA was out. So we immediately removed that program as one of the ones to look at as a district. And we were originally going to go with 4 products, right? And to say, let's just look at them all, right? However, after some conversations with the vendor, which was the account manager, and I actually confirmed it with one of the deputy commissioners at DESI, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, which has Into Reading, they have a 2025 product, but their previous product, given the new rubrics that DESI's using to look at these products, wouldn't have met muster. So that, I was like, that's interesting. So you have them on your list. However, if you were to take your current rubrics right now and put it as an overlay on their 2020 product, you wouldn't have approved it. So I was like, wow, okay, well, we're not gonna look at that product. So we decided to go with 3, which is actually typical for a district to be looking at 3 products, but we were originally gonna go with 4 because there was that even score across the board. So right now, and we're gonna be starting this because I actually have the products on the way going to the pilot teachers. So we're gonna be looking at 3 products for the school year, starting with professional development this summer. We actually have a date. We're gonna be speaking to the teachers tomorrow. I told them to please hold off and wait till I spoke with the committee. We're going to be looking at 3 programs. The first one is Arts and Letters by Great Mind, which is the updated version of Wit and Wisdom. We are looking at EL Education. You see 2 publishers here because they have 2 publishers. Very weird. That's a whole nother story. I'll have to do that as another presentation. But we have a publisher that will give it to us. And then Wonders, which is by McGraw-Hill. And what we will do is we will start with get the materials in now before the end of the school year so the teachers can have it in hand. They will come for professional development over the summer. So we have 8 teachers for each program going across board, so 29 teachers. And then we will also provide them additional professional development on our half-days through the school year. And ideally, in a perfect world, if all goes well, because last time we went into COVID when we were doing a pilot, but we're going to be positive right now. And by February 2027, we will have a decision on which product to use and purchase moving forward for 27 and beyond.
Okay. Any questions?
I do have one question. So I know that Desi's list included some products that were kind of holistic curricula that covered everything from phonemic awareness all the way through reading comprehension, while others were focused more on the comprehension side and could be paired with existing products that did the foundational skills. So I know Chelmsford has been using Foundations for a lot of its foundational skills, as well as Haggerty. So I'm just curious if these curricula that we're piloting would be sort of standalone, replacing all of that, or would they be complemented by the existing phonics and phonemic awareness curriculum that we use?
So 2 of them, so Arts and Letters and EL are the 2 that have a separate product that you would have to purchase. So those 2 will be what you were saying, like they will complement the current foundations.
Okay.
Because there was a lot of, I heard a lot from the elementary teachers and not even the ones that reviewed the products. There was a little bit of a, buzz at the elementary level of like, well, we're not getting rid of foundations. Are we getting rid of foundations? A lot of that was happening. And I'm like, well, we're going to have to see which products we have to decide that. Wonders is the one that has the phonics that's integrated in. However, they have a crosswalk document with foundations because I think they're very well aware that many districts use that. If you go on, now this is old information when we all had to fill out what we were using for products, but DESE has like what they call a heat map of like who's using which products. If you look at that currently, and again, we filled this out 2 years ago, there were like 148 districts using Foundations. Like Foundations is big in Massachusetts. So what we're going to do for Wonders is kind of came up with our own little plan. It's going to be great. We are going to actually, typically we have like a group of teachers that work together. We're actually going to take 2 K teachers and 2 grade 3 teachers, and we're going to do like our own little experiment with it. We're going to have some teach Wonders as is with their phonics, and then have the other teach it in combination with Foundations, because we felt like if a student in kindergarten didn't get Foundations, because I was very concerned about like, well, if the program's not good for the phonics, I don't want to have kids go through it, and then we have this group of kids that we have to then remediate. So we felt like kindergarten students, we could, if there were any glitches within a program, they're going to receive Foundations in grade 1, 2, and 3. Your current 3rd graders, which are our 2nd graders right now, would have already had K1, 2 in with Foundations. So 1 year of like a different program that has a crosswalk to it. I don't think we're going to do much harm. Am I making sense? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and for all that we know and hear, these Wonders is, a high-quality curriculum too, so the chances of it.
And the fact that they
Messing with
have a
students are
crosswalk
slim.
document with Foundations, if something were to go really awry, I think it would be easy to jump back into Foundations.
The crosswalk would help with that,
and
that makes sense.
I would be hearing from the teachers immediately if something was not right. And so
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of faith in the fact that who would be doing these pilots. So that was kind of our way of, is this program working very well without affecting students? Because I did have a big concern about that. And we were trying to figure out how we were going to do that. So but the other 2, they have 2 separate phonics programs. We're just going to stick
So
with
we would stick with our existing phonics and use this to replace the pieces that Fontes and Pinnell used to cover. Thank you, that's helpful to know, and I had spoken with a few educators who were, as you just noted, really reluctant to stop using foundations and felt really strongly that that was a positive component of the existing array of programs we have, so. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Any other?
I just have a comment. I'm really glad to see that our teachers want to have product that has authentic literature. I have seen samples of some of the science of reading products that are really much more so decodable based, and I could not imagine students beyond first grade having any engagement with them at all. So some of them, while they may be approved for science of reading, are terrible as an overall product. So I'm glad we're not looking at any of
that
those.
was a big push in general because we have a lot of great literature already in the district that they were like, well, wait a minute, we don't want like a scripted program or something that has stories, but they're like generated by a non-author.
Yeah, and some of them are truly awful and not engaging at all. So I'm really glad to hear that. I also like the idea of keeping foundations and perhaps Haggerty too. I don't have a lot of confidence in putting all our eggs in one basket for one program and one publisher. I like the idea of having something we know has worked and then something a little bit different and use them in tandem with each other. I like that idea. So I'm glad they were considering that.
Any questions?
Yeah, just a question, all these pilot programs, the publishers give those to us for free, right? Or not?
Dennis is thinking the same
Yeah.
thing.
Yes, no, that would be great. That used to be the case.
Yeah.
Apparently that's changed. No, Wonders, they're not charging us. The others are charging us. However, I've been on the phone with them a lot.
Okay.
And it's amazing how the price changes. So there is a cost to it, but it's not devastating. And we are all set for it. I have plenty of money in my curriculum adoption line to purchase them.
Yeah, because I always thought, they want you to
Yeah, it's
take
more
a
the
photo.
student material piece. They're not charging us necessarily for the teacher pieces.
Okay.
It's more of like, there is a lot of some consumables and, products that come with it, right? So yes, we do have to spend some money to get them. But that's changed over the years because it was always for free. But here we are. Your
So,
bigger companies can do it for free. I think a lot of these, like the other two, are not as, like, these, not your Houghton Mifflins, your McGraw-Hills, your Heinemann. Those are the big people. I call them big box stores. They have more leeway. They can write off
As long
more.
as we have the money.
We do, yeah. You're all set.
we're okay, good. All right, so first of all, it is a tremendous amount of work. I saw the room filled here with all of the different samples and so on. Kind of truly amazing. To me, it's always inspirational to look at how teachers know how to teach. And they can look at these products and really understand how they will develop the students' skills and they're willing to give it a try and to make sure, and you're thinking about, the end result of this. So it's really, really important. Thank you. Thank you for continuously updating us on what's happening with that scheduling, that schedule that was set up. That's important too, and I think people are reading a lot about, the science of reading, literacy, all of this, and concerned about whether we're going in the right way, and we are going in the right path. So thank you. All right, we are moving along. We're in item number 7. We
Yes.
get Dr. Lang.
You
He's
do.
going to present to us, and this is,
I finally get to talk.
I am so excited about this particular report.
Well, you've been asking about
I
this
know.
for
I am
quite some time.
totally
so
excited about
I
this
had a
one.
little bit of time to put together just like kind of a 10-year overview on demographically and enrollment-wise, how the district has really changed and how it is only going to continue to change over the next number of years. I think this general information is important to just generally set context. I think it's also important, obviously, when we talk about our enrollment and our enrollment projections around the new school building project. There's going to be another kind of piece of this work, because this is a lot of just specific data around the enrollment itself, the demographic itself. But then, because we've seen these changes over the last 10 years also, we have invested significantly in increased programming for our L students, our special ed students. So there'll be another, it's going to take a little bit of time. I'm actually going to work with DM Group on this, but kind of a financial report to also kind of frame what the district has been spending funding on the last 10 years, and then what are we going to need to spend funding on going forward to help us as we get into our new strategic plan. So it's all going to really, I think, come together nicely. I'll have a little memo for you at the next meeting on that. But this was the first part of it. I didn't want to hold until we got everything, so I figured we would share this tonight. I threw it up on the screen. I don't have like a PowerPoint, but I threw it up on the screen just in case anyone from home is watching, so that they can at least see some of the numbers. But, overall, district enrollment-wise, again, pre-pandemic, we were very stable in the district. We, like a lot of other districts in the state, saw a little bit of a decline during the pandemic. We saw our homeschool numbers jump pretty significantly during those couple of years. And then after 2020, when we came back from the pandemic, our numbers certainly have come back, as well as we've started to see some enrollment growth. So again, I think we're at the point where over the next 5 to 10 years, we're still projected to grow another, depending on the projection, 300 to 400 students, which is significant because we've picked up the other 100 plus already since coming back from the pandemic. So overall, again, we're a little over 5,000 students, but I think what you'll see is just the pretty significant change in the racial and demographic profile of the district. So our total enrollment of students back in 2015, 78% of our district was classified as white within our report. And you'll see that that number actually dropped down 10 years later to 62%. So that's a pretty significant jump there. Our Asian population of students, doubled in the last 10 years, growing from 640 up to 986. Our black students rose pretty significantly, again, more than doubling from 105 up to 225. And then we also have our Hispanic and Latino students significantly growing, 229 up to 483. And then DESE has also started to record multiple races. So when you look at the kind of the chart on the second page that summarizes this, you'll see that pretty significant change in enrollment. Yes, our overall enrollment is up from 4987 to 5128, but again, it's those shifts within the enrollment that's, I think, pretty telling. And you certainly see that when you're in our schools and you're visiting classrooms.
Yes, and in our graduation as well.
In graduation, we'll see it at graduation. Also of significant note is the linguistic diversity of the students. And you'll see that in 2015, just under 10% of our students, or 490 in the district, their first language was not English. That number more than tripled in the last 10 years. So we're at 30% of our students in the district who have a first language not English. Again, that's very notable. As well as our L students increasing. And I actually came in 2015 and we had about 150 L students in the district, and that has nearly doubled up to 268. So that, again, is just a pretty significant change in our overall student population. What's very telling, the DESE, when we see some of the different reporting that comes from them, talks about a district's high-need population, and they take into consideration students whose first language isn't English, economically disadvantaged or low income. That used to be like our free and reduced lunch count. We don't really do that anymore, so they just call economically disadvantaged or low income, our English learners, and then our students with disabilities. Amy had actually touched on this when she was here, but we saw SPED go from 16.3 up to just under 21%, or pretty notable growth. Again, our L population had a steady increase. Our low-income students nearly doubled. From 9.7% of students in 2015 up to almost 18% of students these years. And then, again, what was most telling to me was the, again, high needs numbers overall. 25.9 going up to 37.2% of our students would fall into one of those three categories. So that was pretty significant. Amy touched upon this in her report, and again, I think it'll be very telling when we look at the financials, because I know that's where we've been putting a significant investment of dollars. Certainly, our total students have grown in special education from the 16.3 up to 20%, or almost 1 in 5 students in the district are on IEPs. and have disabilities. But you'll also see the number of students that are being educated within district has increased significantly. So the number of full inclusion students in our district back in 2015, 447, has gone up to 715, or, about a 250% increase in students there. Our substantially separate classrooms increased as well, 34 to 75. That, again, kind of speaks to those substantially separate programs that we've added, the SAIL programs at our elementary schools, Byam and Harrington, our life skills programs, our Strive program. These are students that, maybe 10 years ago, we might not have been able to meet some of their needs, and they may have been then looking at out-of-district placements. But we've been able to, as you'll see in the chart below, we've actually reduced our private school day placements by about half, down 19 students. And then our overall out-of-district placements have also gone down significantly, up by a third. We had 24 less students in the category. Again, I think the last chart for me just is certainly not surprising, but we've seen just a dramatic increase, more than doubling of our students on the autism spectrum, K-12 in the district, in the last 10 years. Students qualifying with communication disabilities. And again, I think some of our communication language-based programming at the middle school level has certainly helped. But again, that's why our numbers are high, because we have those students staying in district as opposed to going out of district. Not really surprising that post-pandemic also, we've seen students with just an increased complexity of health-related issues, and certainly social-emotional issues as well, and needing extra support services. So again, overall, I think, a big takeaway for me is just, and you had asked this a couple of times to kind of frame the situation, but the demographic of Chelmsford, and I think to Chelmsford Public Schools, is certainly changing. And for positive, I think diversity is good, and I think you see that when you're in your schools. But I think having this data also is just helpful. Again, as we're talking about budgeting, and we're talking about the new school building project, and we're talking about services, and where we're allocating funding, we do have to keep these things in mind. So, again, this is more data now. The second phase of the report will be more financial.
Yeah. I think it even goes to things like recruiting and, our staff and making sure, have a good night, that there's compliance and so on. And it can add a huge layer of the needs within our district to meet, these particular increased needs of our students and our families. Part of it tonight was the social emotional component and the outreach directly to the individual. You can see it already and how it has to be offered. So I think that this report is really, really important. And I remember the last time when I was running for school committee, realizing that I really think quite a few of the folks in town may not realize how different our school system is in terms of the students that we're serving and the families and their needs. And I think the reason a lot is in Chelmsford because we have families who have been here quite a long time and may still picture things in the same way. And not intentionally, in many times, it's just that that's what happens. But it has changed substantially. And I really thank you for putting together this report, and I'm looking forward to the next component. That's really interesting to be able to use that way. Anybody else, any thoughts, comments?
I appreciate the report, thank you.
It was
Yeah.
very eye-opening.
Yeah, this is a great report, and it does show a lot of the growth of the town and where it's headed, and I couldn't be more pleased, but.
I actually just wanted to make one more comment, which was just to say that I am really excited in some ways to see the growing diversity of our schools. It was an asset that drew my family to Chelmsford, that our children would be in schools with children who did and did not look like them and whose families were and were not like their own. And I think, I know we're thinking for very important reasons about the budgetary implications for where our services are going, for, let's say, some high needs populations, making sure we have the right staffing in place. But I also wanted to note that some of this, to me, reads like an asset that our community has, where we have the richness of such a diverse community that is growing.
I agree.
And a lot of districts in Massachusetts do not have growing populations either. And to me, that part of that is a testament to our schools that are drawing people to this community.
Thank you for pointing that out. Number one, overall district enrollment, that is not what's happening in a lot of districts. What I'm hearing is reports of schools consolidating, especially at the elementary level, because they don't have enough students to put in those school buildings. With us, that's not what's happening. So that is a testament. And the other thing I did want to tell you is that when they were doing the report today on the special ed programs and so on that we have, I think since I've been on the committee, I've seen how there's been vision in the budget and in the positions created and so on over the years to increase the programs that we are providing. And that has added tremendously to the richness of what we can offer as a district. So, so that's been really, really terrific, in my opinion. Anybody else comments and so on? Great. Okay. Thank you again for
You're
doing
welcome.
that. This is a night with a lot of information, but wonderful stuff. Okay, we are moving on to the 2026-27 student enrollment update.
Speaking
The
of
good old
data.
kindergarten is coming
You're
in.
getting a lot of data tonight, so what we end up having here is, I always report to you after we do, have a good night. After we
night,
do
Richard.
the spring enrollment for kindergarten registration, and then we also have some students that come to us just for first grade. This is just a snapshot as of yesterday as to where our enrollment goes. We didn't actually have too big of an enrollment in the spring. The April numbers, most of the students ended up coming in during January enrollment, which is fine. And then we have a handful of students that just kind of walk in, because you still can, between now and the start of the school year, come in anytime you need to and register. So you'll see the number on the far right, 331 overall students who are registered for kindergarten in the fall. At the bottom of the first column, you'll see like Byam has 82, and then it works its way across to the right. These are just numbers that we track. As of right now, when we budget, we always budget to start with 4 kindergarten classes at each of our schools. And I'll watch these numbers. If we have a trip up into the 90s, we'll start having conversations about potentially having to add a 5th section of kindergarten at these schools. But as of right now, if these numbers stayed the same, we would just operate with the 4 kindergartens in each of the schools for the fall. I'll give you another update probably as we get into the summer months, just in case anything changes drastically. Internally, we look at the data. Jane, Central Registrar, does a nice job of giving us a heads up if she's got like an onslaught of registrations and the numbers change significantly. But I'd certainly let you know, but this is something that we track, and overall, I think we're in good shape as of right now for the fall.
That's great.
Can I just ask a really quick question, which is, so I believe, I might be wrong, but I believe the past several years, there's been a 5th section of kindergarten at Byam specifically. Does that have any staff retention implications if we have one less kindergarten group, or does that staff member potentially move?
So if we ever have a situation, and again, Byam is typically has had the 5 sections. There have been years where they drop down to 4. So if we ever drop down to 4, we have to just take a look at the staff that are there. We have to see if they were hired permanently, were they hired like an interim, because sometimes if we have a bubble, we might just hire an interim type teacher. If it's a professional status teacher or a teacher that's been in the role for quite some time, if we have a section somewhere else in the Byam, you might have like a retirement or resignation. We might flip a person as long as they're licensed into a different class. We try to keep them within the school first if they're going to be displaced. If we can't take care of them at the school, they might have to jump into like a district-wide opening. But, we would try to hold on to the person, and they just might need to be flexible and be used somewhere else, help us out somewhere else for the year. But Byam is, I am a little surprised, to be quite honest with you, with the number being so low. So I'm not going to do any kind of quick action on that. We're going to wait until we get a little bit deeper into the probably June to just kind of figure out what to do on that front.
Harrington appears to have the highest number right now, right?
Yep, as of right now, they've got 86.
If I had to guess, it looks like it's possibly because it just seems like fewer CHIP students were going to Byam.
Yeah, the CHIPS differential each year does throw the numbers off. That's just based on geography, though, and addresses. But Byam, I mean, has had years where they've been over 100, you know, and
Yeah.
they've had a class that has like 105, 110. So it is a little surprising that they're low, but we'll keep watching it.
What do we typically add over the summer? Another 10 students, another?
I'd have to look back to you for
Yeah,
last
I
year.
didn't know
It
if you
honestly
knew it.
fluctuates so
Yeah,
much,
okay.
it's hard to guess. But if the numbers trip up into the mid-90s or so is when we start to look about potentially adding another section.
Okay.
So, at this point in time, I believe we have one school or two schools with 5Ks this year. I know Byam has. I'll have to take a peek. But anyway, we would work with those staff to try to utilize them within the buildings.
Okay. All right, so thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'll
Everybody
keep
okay
you
on
in the loop.
that? Terrific. All right, so our next item is transportation program registration.
Joanna gets very excited about this report every
She-
year.
she
so
loves
we'll let
this.
her, share her data.
Okay, so we're going to talk about buses. The first memo is this year, what's happening. And then the second memo is rates for next year. No change in the rates is what we're going to recommend. And then the third memo is just a little flyer of how families would go about registering for the bus, which they need to do every year. Okay, so for this year, we're going to talk, this is the big yellow school bus. We have 3,642 students riding the big buses. We have 29 of them, and they make 3 runs. They start at the high school, and then go to the middle school, and then go to the elementary school, and then do the same in the afternoon. And this is, I think, the highest number of students we've ever transported. The fees for the bus are in the little chart below. If everybody has to pay a fee except K to 6 over 2 miles. Okay? And I'll, just so that everybody understands the fee, we'll get to it, but, you know, if you register early, it's $175 for the year. And that just pays for part of the bus service. The district funds the remaining piece through the local budget. If you want to ride the bus, you need to register, even if you don't have to pay a fee. And this is so we know where you are, we know how to do the routing, we know how to pick the bus stops. And then you're going to, we'll remind you starting in June to register, and then we suggest that you register early to get the discount. And then it just also helps us with our planning for the routes for the year. The second page is just the little chart of families who registered early. So last year we got to a great start, over 2,000 riders registered in June, and then 840 in July. And then this is where it gets a little hard to do the routing when, you know, close to 700 students still register late in August. So we really encourage you to register early. We want to know if you want to ride the bus or not. We still have our transportation coordinator, Peter Bercalis, and he does all the routing and works with the bus company. We have a software program that does that, and then the data is fed into X2, so families can go on the busing tab and see what your bus number is, what your bus stop is, what time they're going to be there in the morning, what time they'll drop you off in the afternoon. And then we will also mail you a bus pass in mid-August, closer to the start of school. The second little chart says how many buses are at each school and the average count of the student on the bus. Just remember, the big buses can carry 83 students. So we have the capacity on the buses. The reason we have so many is the time. It takes time to go and pick you up and bring you to school. And that's why we need 29 buses. So we're going to mail the bus passes. Our goal is in August, and we can only mail it to you if we know who you are. And then I think some of your members have come in when it's been bus pass mailing day, and everybody in the business office helps out and gets those 3,600 bus passes out on time. And then the last page is just a reminder of all the things we've done when we brought the transportation decisions in-house rather than just relying on the vendor. So we create our own routes using the software, we mail out the bus passes. Remind everybody you must register to ride the bus. It's online, you go on to My School Bucks, which we use that platform for lots of registrations and fee collection. And then we still, if you have concerns you want to bring up to us about the bus, you can still contact Peter Berkalis, and we'll try to work through those problems quickly and resolve all the issues. And that's about it for this year.
Wow.
Any questions about this year?
It's very thorough. Well done. Any questions now, everybody? Okay, so we'll make a motion to accept these fees for the year.
Well,
But we didn't present the fees yet.
fees are next.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Oh, you're right. I'm already looking at the fees. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
It's another memo.
Sorry about that,
No,
Sharon.
that's okay. So the next memo is the fees we're recommending for next year, and these have been the fees for many, many years.
It is.
So what we're recommending is if you register early in June, the per student fee would be $175 for a maximum family cap of $400. If you register in July, it's the standard fee, which is $200 per student, and a family cap of $500. If you register in August, it goes up a little bit, and that would be $225 with a family cap of $500. And then we added a few years ago a half-year registration. If you register February 1st or beyond, it would be $100 with a family cap of $500. So no change to the fee structure is what is being recommended.
Just to reiterate what Joanna said, these fees don't even come close to covering our overall cost for transportation. We haven't raised them. I've been doing this is my 10th year, and I don't remember the last time we raised them. And the transportation costs have definitely gone up in those years. So we really tried to keep things affordable for the.
These costs were here when I got here.
Yeah.
So, this is going on year 12. We haven't adjusted the rates. And the bus rates, as you indicate, just continue to get higher per year. So this is just covering a smaller and smaller percentage of the overall cost of the transportation. But I think we've kind of viewed it as if we can do that, and it's not really like another kind of tax or fee on the families, then that's what our kind of goal was. But yes, I mean, we haven't adjusted the rate. We're low when it comes to like other communities who do charge for a rate.
I've looked at other communities and we are doing really well for families here by keeping these costs the same because a lot of the surrounding towns charge a lot more than this.
And I've been hearing of the impact of the gas costs. Does that impact our contract in any
We
way?
do not, in the current contract, there is not a fuel escalation clause. So we know our rate for next school year.
And that contract is in existence until
We're going into year 5.
into year 5. Okay. Well, we now have all the information at our fingertips here. Thank you. All right. So, any questions, concerns, other concerns? Okay, so
Right.
we will.
I move that we adopt the transportation fee structure, including the regular, early, late, and half-year registration rates for the 2027 school year, as presented here in the memo dated May 15, 2026.
Okay.
Second.
Wonderful. And this one, because it involves money, I'll do a roll call. Susan?
Aye?
Okay, Diana?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Dennis? and I'll be an aye. And thank you again, Joanna, for all the fine work here. We are moving on to item number 10. We have a new schedule for warrant signing. And just, I believe we are still doing it with one person signing the warrant.
We need at least one person. More people can come in, but we just need one signature.
Okay.
But if two people came in and said they signed it, it'd be fine. If three keep,
Yeah,
it's still
I'm okay with.
available.
I'm okay with this personally. Everybody's still okay with that as well? Terrific. So, do we need a motion on this one? Not
No,
really?
Joanna just shares the schedule with you,
Okay.
and I'll put a copy in your Dropbox just in case you are ever looking for it.
Yeah.
But it's more just to kind of let people kind of plan. I don't know if you put it in your own calendars or whatnot, but
And the-
just sharing it with you.
Okay, and this is really nice that you said thank you to us, but also your office does remind us and send us an email and so on. And I personally have appreciated the cooperation among us, saying whether we've gone or not gone to sign. So that is truly appreciated. Thank you. All right, and we are now into the personnel report.
Thanks, and this is going to be our last report of the evening. We just have a detailed report for the month of April, just listing some of our new hires, and then we had a few resignations, and we had one assignment change or transfer within the district. So just keeping you up to date with the personnel moves within the district.
Can I just ask on the resignations, it seems like a lot of our social workers have moved on. Any particular reason or?
No, if I had to guess, well, the CHIPS position is a part-time position. So sometimes people do look to take a full-time position if they have one. The Ms. Currier, who's been at Parker, I believe this is her third year in that school, is just leaving for a different opportunity. And then Ms. Dutcher, I believe, is leaving for,
I think she's going to take some child rearing.
yeah, it was like a family type
Just
thing.
coincidental that they all happen to.
Yes, and I actually think a couple of these potentially will come back when they're in a position like where they can. One, I think, is definitely just some child rearing, but when the job opens, they will come back to us. But no, it is a little bit,
Moving out of the area too.
All right.
oh, is that what happened?
With I think with CHIPS, I think. Can't remember though.
Okay.
But
but no,
these
there's-
positions we've already filled or?
Yeah, so overall, we're actually doing very well position-wise. As of yesterday, we just had one position left in the district that we had an offer out for that hadn't been, the person just hadn't gone back to us yet. So, yes, we'll have some long-term subs, we'll have some maternity leaves, things like that that we have to fill for the fall. But as of yesterday, we were down to just one job that we were still looking to fill. So the social worker has already been filled at Parker. I have to find out about CHIPS. I hadn't heard about that one yet. And I think Shannon just sent the paperwork over for the replacement of Sean Dutcher. So things are moving along. We're in a good spot hiring-wise.
Okay, well,
Do you know how many, I'm sorry, do
go ahead, please.
you know how many retirements we're having at the end of the school year?
Joanna does.
I think it's 8 or 9.
Okay, curious. I know you always tell them when it's time, but it's not time yet.
Okay, for me, just a comment on the social workers is, after the report we heard tonight and the report you provided to us as well on what's happening demographically and so within this, our district, the role of the social worker is more and more important. So, they provide a service that's, I've run into some situations where the social worker was involved and it made the difference. It was night and day. So,
Yep.
really, truly, just important. Okay, no field trips.
We don't have any
correct?
field
All
trips.
right, so we are into liaison reports. Okay.
I can share. I got to spend some time with the Parker and McCarthy PTOs last week. And it was great to see the awarding of a few scholarships. I think they had like 80 applications. It was a very big year for scholarship applications. So, and a real honor for the ones who were able to win. They are both busy as usual. At Parker, we heard a lot about the Pride Run, which happened this past weekend, and I got to go to that, and it was great. A lot about transitions happening. These middle schools are dealing with a lot of both ends of transitions. They're the schools dealing with the most transitioning. So a lot about step ups for fourth graders, for sixth graders, for eighth graders going to different schools in and out. And Parker has been having some spring socials and is preparing for the We Are Parker celebration coming up next week. At McCarthy, it's been very heavy MCAS for eighth graders. Eighth graders get a lot of MCAS with civics, science, plus the math and the reading. So I think they're happy to have that behind them. And dance coming up, just lots of great things happening. I got to enjoy the Showboat last weekend, which is the talent show for both middle schools. Nice. And it was wonderful to see the talent on display from these young people. So kudos to both schools for that. And finally, just a note that for the middle schools, this week is staff appreciation because they were trying to avoid when MCAS was happening in the schools. So although many of the schools celebrated, like Teacher Appreciation Week is kind of statewide, is the first week of the month. We're really excited to be celebrating the hard work of the staff at Parker and McCarthy this week.
That's great. Anyone else for liaison reports?
I do. Let's see, I went to the CHIPS PTO meeting. They, as always, have so many wonderful enrichment things. We'll talk about the ones that are coming up. They have field day this week on Thursday and Friday. They have goats from Chip In Farm coming for the kids to hang out with on May 28th. And their ever-popular Touch-a-Truck Day is coming up on Wednesday, June 3rd. And then the school year will be over. They were able to elect a new slate, so their board is in place and ready for next school year. So that's great. Then I went to Harrington PTO. Also was able to, they've got some changes coming. Some people changing roles, some people leaving. A new PTO president, but they are also in good shape for starting off next school year. They are presenting 2 scholarships to former students. They'll be, each student is getting a $500 scholarship. Very, very nice. So that they'll be getting that really soon. And I think all of their enrichment activities are completed for the school year. So that's that. I also went to the Council of Chelmsford Schools meeting last night, and they're going to have quite a bit of change, but they now have a slate of officers to continue as well.
Yep. Anyone else on liaison reports?
Not current, but I will attend the CPAC, meet the new board next week. We have a building committee meeting on Thursday. I unfortunately have graduation, so we'll have to rely on Superintendent Lang again to give us updates there. And then just as an aside is, because I have nothing else to do, I also volunteered to be on the town manager screening committee because I thought we needed a perspective.
Thank you.
That's
From the
good.
schools. So
Appreciate
we had
that.
our first meeting last week. They opened up for resumes and things, and we should have that closing next week. And so the 28th will be our next meeting, and there'll be opportunity for public comment if anybody wants to come in and offer their opinions of what we should see in our new town manager. If any of you have comments, please feel free to send them to me. They'll also accepting written comments. I've sent to Aaron Cunningham, who's on the select board, as the chairperson of that. So if anybody wants to contribute to that, great.
Thank you.
Good,
Thank you for
doing that.
doing
That's
that.
great.
Oh, yeah. Now, for me, Council of Schools, Susan went, I had my daughter's graduation, so she did the report on the school committee, but I was also present, and yes, they have a new slate. I would like to also just mention that Melissa Brennan, Lisa Bryant, and Ginger Skook are, and Amanda Collison to an extent, are leaving. Big thank you to them for any of the work and all the work that they did put in to the Council of Schools. Council of Schools is a really important entity that many people may not understand, but it brings all of the PTOs together under one group. And it was really interesting to hear because both Susan and Dr. Hirsch were there yesterday, and they have an even longer perspective on the Council of Schools than my understanding of over the last 8 years. The other thing I wanted to mention is the high school PTO. We heard that they're running the pickleball tournament at the end of this month. They also have their drop-off locations set up already for any folks that are donating for the after prom. And they're gonna do their end of the year staff appreciation coming up as well. So just to let folks know that. Okay, so that's me. And everybody else all set? Yep. We are moving on. Any new items that you want to bring up? The only thing I'm going to mention, Dr. Hirsch, is I've been wondering about graduation requirements and if anything's changed on that. But, just for the future to keep that in mind. I think there is something coming up on it, so I just want to make sure. And I do thank you very much for that report. That was really great. Thank you.
Just one other thing, I noticed on one of the newsletters, that we're switching communication platforms. So if you could just get an update of what we're switching to, why we're switching, that type of thing.
Sure. Bill Silva is going to be coming to one of the 2 meetings in June, so either the next one or the one after, and I know he can touch on that. But we've been using historically Blackboard Connect as our system to do like robocalls and phone calls and things like that, and it's going away. So we had to switch to a different provider to have a new service. So Bill put a group together to look at different companies that do that kind of a service and selected Parent Square, so we're going to be rolling that out. There's a bunch of communications that are going to go out to families just so that they notice the difference. But when he comes in June, I'll make sure he touches on that.
Great.
And the system actually is pretty cool. It has some extra enhancements and functions that'll integrate into like some of our communication with individual clubs and teams and sports and families. So he can touch on that when he knows it more than I do, but he can touch on that when he gets here in June.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you. So we have no other public comments, and I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.
All right.